This is episode 21 of the BASCHAMANIA podcast. I am your host, Justin Bash, and we have another 2020 Olympic hopeful on today's show. Today, NCAA champion Darian Cruz stops by as we talk all things ranging from the upcoming U.S. Open and Olympic trials to winning NCAAs, overcoming adversity, losing NCAAs, so much more. It's a blessing having these guys all on the show, but it's a blessing and a curse because, man, it's hard not to root for these guys when you get to know them. And so many guys are going to have their dreams and hearts shattered in April, and only very few. If you figure, I focus a lot here on men's freestyle. Only 6 guys will have their dreams come true. Aside from that, think about how many guys are having their hearts and dreams shattered and broken. Guys that are training. This opportunity comes once every 4 years. It's crazy what's at stake, and it's such a blessing to be able to have these Olympic hopefuls on the show and kind of get to know them a bit more and pull out some value and entertainment from what they have to offer. With that said, we'll get into today's show, but before we do, real quick, if you enjoy this podcast, be sure to subscribe on your favorite audio app, Apple, Spotify, Anchor, YouTube, Google Podcast, you name it. Go subscribe to the podcast. Leave a 5-star review if you have a minute. I think you can only do that on Apple, but go on Facebook, Apple, leave a review if you have a minute. And with that said, let's roll the intro.
It's BASCHAMANIA! Let me tell you something, brother. He gave us everything he had in him tonight. What you gonna do when BASCHAMANIA runs wild on? Oh, it's gonna be a good one. And business just picked up here on the podcast. Oh, yeah.
Mr. Darian Cruz, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. A lot of family back. Spent a little bit with our Lehigh family here, and my family's actually from right around here in Bethlehem, so a lot of people came back. So it was really good. What about you?
It's slowly becoming my favorite holiday. There's something about it. I love, for the second year in a row, we hosted my wife's family, and I love Christmas, and this kind of kicks off Christmas, feasting all day on good food, so it's definitely a blessing.
It definitely has changed now that, I'm doing more adulting things.
Yeah.
The whole idea of Thanksgiving, you know what I mean? And I actually had my girlfriend's Thanksgiving today, which is going to be cool. You know what I mean? Just seeing different Thanksgiving.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome. Like, I'm 30. I think there's a reason I'm 33 and it's now becoming my favorite holiday. Wasn't it like 22?
100%. So, I mean, good minds think alike, I'm sure. So, I'm excited to kind of see the culture. I've only had one, Thanksgiving tradition, my whole life, so I get to kind of see, somebody else's. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, I got to tell you, I'm really excited to dive into this conversation a bit because before anybody comes on the show, especially people I don't get to spend a lot of time with, I really try to dive in and learn as much as I can so that I can pull out as much as I can for both value, entertainment. I think this sport teaches us so much, and I think one of the best things that we can do as having any involvement in the sport is kind of regurgitating that for those who are younger or older, whatever the case may be. And that's kind of why I started this podcast. Was I'm blessed to have so many great conversations with so many high-level guys, and I want to share those conversations with people. And one of the videos I was watching just like a half hour ago was, and I remember it, but I wanted to watch it like 3 times again, was your letter to wrestling that aired during the NCAA championships. There are so many like little golden nuggets in there, and I want to kind of pull from that and expound on those points, and I think that's really gonna there's so much application, so I'll kind of dive right into it. The first thing that really caught my ear in the letter was you said it takes a tremendous amount of dedication, and you learn that at a young age, which is interesting because I was a terrible wrestler. I wrestled in middle school and high school. I never did anything. But I give like all my credit for any success I have to the sport. Like, it taught me so much. But I didn't learn that until through middle school, high school. Like, I remember little things when I was in middle school, like my coach saying on a Saturday morning, listen, you just did more in the last 2 hours than most will do all day. Like, the sport teaches
100%.
you a lot, but you got to kind of have that mindset. And it took me till middle school, high school. How did you realize that at such a young age? Was it because you were already becoming so good, so your thought process is a little more developed, or what was that like?
I mean, it was interesting, to be honest. I had a coach who was so dedicated, to having me, be my best. So honestly, I didn't really understand it. You know what I mean? At a young age, it's hard to understand something like that. Yep. Right? It's hard to understand something like dedication or commitment at a young age, right? You're going to practice, you want to, play with your Pokemon cards or whatever.
Right.
And it's hard for you to really, conceptualize and wrap your head around that. But I give a lot to one of my coaches, and one of my favorite coaches is my dad, obviously. And he would just kind of keep me interested, you know what I mean, and just keep me competing at such a young age.
And what age is this? When you say keeping you competing, like what age are you talking?
Yeah, I mean, we started when I was like 4 years old, 4 or 5 years old, because I had an older brother who was 5, and we both kind of started at the same time. So I was 4, he was 5. And we got into it, and it's crazy, looking back at old brackets, I used to wrestle with Jason Nolf all the time, me and Zane Rutherford.
Yep.
It's funny that we were training partners at for the World Championship.
Yeah, Zane was telling me that.
We were actually talking about it while we were out there in Germany and Kazakhstan. He's like, you made me do a lot of sprints when we were little kids, because we used to go back and forth all the time. You know what I mean? And I did a lot. He's like, I did a lot of push-ups, because we would wrestle so much, trying to beat you. And it's so funny. Even same thing with Chenzo and a couple of those Penn State guys, and like Joey McKenna. We used to run through little kids, Tomaso, and it's it started when we were younger, just competing. And like I said, my dad was one of my favorite coaches, and honestly, like, my dad didn't really have a crazy background in wrestling. He wrestled, just like you, middle school, high school, maybe, and then that was it. So it was cool to learn and grow in the sport with my pops, which was cool. You know what I mean? So
is that what got you into the sport when you were young? Like, did you want to try
100%.
it, or was it him like telling you, hey, you should give this sport a shot? I mean, it's obviously still young, but...
Yeah, he kind of tricked me and my brother. He said he knew that whatever my dad wanted to do at a young age, I was a big dad's boy. So whatever my dad wanted to do, I wanted to do it. And my older brother was like, I'm real iffy about it. So he told us kind of two different stories. He told me, he said, hey, Randy's going to wrestle this year. I don't know if you want to wrestle, but, Randy's going to wrestle. And I was like, oh, if my brother's going to wrestle? Absolutely, I'm in. And then he told Randy, he said, hey, your brother's going to wrestle this year. I don't know, do you want to wrestle with your brother? And Randy was like, absolutely. So it kind of tricked us. You know what I mean? I don't know if we didn't talk about it until we got older. We were like, do you remember that? But I mean, that's how we got into it. But like I said, he didn't know much. So we started at a young age. We would just do the basic things. And I mean, the letter kind of reflected on what I'm about to say. So all we did when we were little was just extra work, which is push-ups, sit-ups, and sprints. Literally, after like a little kid's workout, we would just do a couple sprints, couple push-ups. You know what I mean? And it's like now people, kind of stay after and do extra technique or extra work,
right?
Stuff like that. But my pops didn't know any of that kind of stuff, and what he did know was just hard work. So at a young age, that's all we would do, right? So that was ingrained. He said, I mean, if you lose a match to somebody, that's technically better than you, technique-wise, and absolutely, hats off to them. He's like, but I will not let anybody beat you guys because you guys are not strong enough, not, fast enough, or not, conditioned enough. And just like at a young age, you don't really understand that. You're just doing sprints, push-ups, and sit-ups. But like, as I got older, I kind of looked back at that and I was like, wow, that is so awesome that like, he did everything in his power to kind of just make sure that we were. He did everything he could, which is cool.
Yeah, and you can't teach work ethic. You really can't. Like, you can teach someone to put in the work, and you can kind of help them along the way of do push-ups, do sit-ups, do pull-ups, do all these things that you can kind of put in work, but you can't teach the actual work ethic. And did that just kind of carry on through middle school, high school, for you into college?
I mean, we kind of got fortunate in the fact that so Bobby Weaver was a local guy too. For those people that don't know Bobby Weaver, Olympic champion at I think he was 105 pounds for United States, 84 Olympics.
Okay.
So he was awesome, and my dad opened up a club with that Bobby kind of wanted to be a part of. So just to have Coach.
You know what?
Coach
I
Weaver
actually, sorry, not to cut you off, but I want to say I sponsored an event at the 2015 World Championships in Vegas that honored the 1980 Olympic team that couldn't compete, and he was on that team. And
yes, sir.
I remember vividly that he was from Rochester, where I'm from. So I knew that name sounded familiar as soon as you said that.
Yeah, he made the 80 team. He actually also had Lehigh too, which was cool. I remember walking to Lehigh, seeing his picture and everything. But yeah, just to have him at our disposal, he was showing us stuff. Me and Coach Brad Dillon. Brad Dillon is a Lehigh coach who was also coached by Bobby Weaver because he's a Lehigh Valley guy as well. So I remember getting to Lehigh and talking to Brad about stuff that we learned when we were like 7 years old, 8 years old, like the little techniques. And I was like, can you believe Bobby Weaver showed us this technique when we were like, he was showing us like foot sweeps and, we had no idea what we were doing. He was such a good teacher that, we just knew how to do it. We didn't really understand it. And we were doing it, we're seeing it now that we're older, and, we're men now. And he's like, me and Brad are like, man, Bobby had no care. He would show us, and we understood and we picked up all this awesome, high-level technique when we were young. And that just hats off to, Coach Bobby Weaver for being an awesome, instructor. Because we always talk about how tough it is to teach little kids, right? I mean, at all the Lehigh camps back when I was in college, they would put me with the baby group. You know what I mean? Like the kids that are like, you have about 5 seconds to kind of get out what you need to get out before they're rolling around.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, I can't believe, Coach Weaver did such a good job with, me and my brother and, anybody, yeah.
And then, I'm curious, like, there's so many, again, in this letter, like, there's so many little golden nuggets. Like, I love one of the things you said, which was moderation is for cowards. And I love that. When in your career did you kind of realize that? Because you only lost, 8 times in high school? Something like that?
Yeah, losing, especially coming from Pennsylvania, wasn't, a big thing, you know what I mean? And it's really humbling when you get out to college wrestling, and you come in the room and you're getting taken down or just kind of beat up by guys that you've never even heard their name of, especially from Pennsylvania. I mean, not discrediting those guys. It's just
no, but
animal.
For sure, yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? You get in there and you're like, who is this dude who's just dogging me today, man? And then I mean and that's one thing that I learned really quick is, there's 2 types of people when you get into college wrestling. There's the guys that are going to bend and the guys that are going to break. You know what I mean? And it's so easy. You see it so many times, unfortunately. Guys just break because it is hard. Right? College wrestling is hard. International wrestling is hard. Like, every level you kind of move up gets harder and harder and harder. So, coming out of high school was like, I think me and Coach Santoro, the staff here, joke about how I had, I think, 7 or 8 losses in high school. And my true freshman year, I started at Lehigh, and I had 7 or 8 losses that season.
It's wild. It's humbling. And that's another thing you said, 100%. Too, which is like the sport has kind of taught you and brought you the highest of highs and lowest of lows. I'm curious, and we'll kind of get into, in a few minutes, the current state of wrestling with the Olympic trials around. But it's interesting because, Thomas Gilman's one of the best wrestlers in the world at 57 kilos, and you beat him. You upset him in the NCAA tournament when on the absolute, I'd say, biggest stage in wrestling.
100%.
And you've also had those lows. You've also had those defeats. Like you said, you lost 8 times throughout your high school career, and then you lose that in your first season. How did you kind of start adapting to that? How did you kind of leverage that adversity and learn? Like you just said, people either bend or break. What kept you from breaking? And, I say this a lot on this show that, I love losing, but I love losing, a year after the fact. Once you can look back and realize, what you took from it. Man, I love that, completely wiped me out because the next 6 months I learned so much. But with wrestling, you don't really have that. You're right back in it.
Yeah, you got to rebound quick.
How did you learn to rebound from losses, and not only just losses, because we'll get into that too with what success is. But with wrestling, it's like there's so much adversity. There's cutting weight. There's getting your butt whooped 100%. In practice. There's not wanting to go to class. Like, how did you learn to deal with that adversity?
I mean, it's just simple, you know. I mean, it's simple in my mind in the aspect of, you know, how bad do you really want it? And, you know, I think I had a lot of success growing up, obviously from work ethic, but I was very talented as well. And I didn't take to, like, even my true freshman year, you know, I had all those losses. I put together a decent NCAA tournament, came out with, you know, 7th as a true freshman, you know, after getting teched by Nico, first match of the tournament. So, you know, that was something that was awesome. You know, that was one of the highest highs at the moment, right?
Right.
You know, I was excited to be a true freshman, get on the podium, but, you know, right away, and this is probably one of the reasons I won the NCAA title, was that next season, or the sophomore season I came back. It was after I redshirted, but that following year, obviously, I ended up losing the blood round to some kid that I had majored in season.
Yep.
Right. So after that match, I remember just, you know, talking to my pops, and I was like, I didn't know what to say. You know what I mean? Because I was one of the lowest lows at the time. That I was like, you know, I just fell short. You know, in my head, I was like, I was supposed to, you know, continue to, you know, keep climbing this mountain. You know, keep going up and up and up, and you know, I just fell off. Right. I just fell off right there and ended up not reaching what you know, you train all year for March.
Yeah.
Right? You train all year for March, and you cannot get that moment back until the next year.
Yep.
Right. So I mean, with that happening, you know, with a low obviously comes, you know, you gotta dig deep and, you know, kind of figure out, make adjustments, you know. And one thing, you know, my pops taught me at a young age as well is, you know, you keep trying to do something, and it's the definition of insanity, if I'm correct. So
yeah.
Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, right? And you can't get stuck in that repetitive over and over and over again. So, I mean, that one hurt really. You know, that one, I took a blow on that one, and that just started something for for my career, which is awesome. Yeah, I needed that in a way, but you know, just the whole idea of kind of digging deep and managing all this, especially in college when you're learning how to do school and wrestling at the same time. Right. Especially if you know, Lehigh's a pretty, you know, tough school, and you know, they're darn near Ivy League, and you know, the education is very you know, it's very interesting because I came from a Catholic school, which is supposed to be pretty good academically, but you know, I come to Lehigh, and there's kids that are they're training as hard at the books as we are at wrestling.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're competing, which is cool. You know, I mean, it's cool to see that. But these people are grinding. So just trying to compete with that and trying to manage that is something in its own. But you know, you take it, and you know, Coach Santoro really helped me out with this as well. And he said, you know, sometimes there's a big picture, right? And he said the big picture can be very intimidating, right? You see this big picture, you see this big path, and he's like, you know what? Like it's scary. Right, the whole idea of it's scary. You like kind of zoom in and take it one frame at a time. He said by the time you know you're at the end, you're like, wow, I just painted this huge picture and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's something that you know I try to think about every day. And that's a way to handle it. You know, just kind of chip away, and just manage what you can today. Do what you can today.
How does that apply then when things don't go your way, right? Like that's a great concept it's a great concept regardless, but when you win, it's easier to say. There's days for me in business, I'm like, man, I didn't have the best day ever. There's days that are just, you can look back and I know like, okay, I trusted the process today. I worked for 12, 13 hours, and I know that every single thing I did was planting seeds and hard work that will come around. And then there's other days where there's stuff that will happen in business that just feels like it's falling into your lap. You like a major contract or you get an amazing talent that wants to come work for you. Like you have those. But a hard part about that, I think, is to stay focused on the bad days. Like how do you 100%. do you when you're not looking at the big picture and you're kind of, Gary Vaynerchuk says all the time, macro speed, micro patience, or no, macro patience, micro speed. So you're kind of patience in the big picture, but you're working as fast and hard as you can every day. How do you rebound from a bad day and kind of reset the next to know, like, whether it's with the practice or whether it's, you know, there's so many highs and lows with wrestling, like it's nuts. You've seen it all. Like you've had those losses where you get tacked and then you've won the NCAA champions, like, or championship. What's kind of been your answer to rebounding from those bad days?
I mean, like you said, everybody's, you know, gonna have a tough day. It's hard. Even Jordan, you know, had tough days. You know, Michael Jordan, even different sport, but still, like one of the greatest of all time. And that's something that you know, my dad has done a really good job too. Is he always takes it out of wrestling sometimes. You know, he'll compare it to something else. He's like, you know, what happens when, you know, Jordan missed a free throw in a game? You know, let's sit after practice, you know, the next week and shoot 1,000 free. You know what I mean? His analogies were awesome. But back to the question. You know, you can only take it one day at a time. You know what I mean? And it's hard, like you said, like I said, the big picture. So if you do end up having a bad day, or you know the stuff's falling in your lap, and you know it feels like something's really going wrong, one thing I like to do is just kind of like outreach, because you know the loved ones in your life are such a huge thing. My support system is unbelievable. You know what I mean? And sometimes, like when you're in the thick of it, and stuff it seems like only you understand. Like sometimes when you're having a bad day, some people, like some of your family members or even outside, you know, support system might not understand like how tough it is, because you personally know you're being hard on yourself, right? It's just something that we do as competitors, both in sports and outside of sports. You know, we want the best effort, we want the best, you know, product, whatever. Like for instance, in practice, sometimes if I had a bad day, I'm so critical on myself, and I'm talking to coaches. Coaches are like, it wasn't even that bad. Like, you know, you had an awesome practice and you messed up you had made one mistake, but in my head, I'm like, man, that mistake could cost me, you know, world championship, Olympic championship, NCAA championship, you know, and so the way you manage that is, you know, how I do it, you know, specifically is I like to break it down. I like to talk about it a lot, right? I like to talk about it, and I like to talk, okay, so if I get in that situation again, what could we do differently? You know what I mean? So, again, the big picture is kind of scary, right? The big picture is you're nervous that whatever happened, both, okay, wrestling-wise, that might cost you a big match.
Yep.
You know, in the workforce, like, man, like, say if I don't get this client or whatever, you know, it might cost me either money down the road or whatever it is. You just kind of break it down and talk about how you could approach the situation a little bit differently. You know what I mean? And that's something that the support system is so big on. At least in my life, which is awesome. You know, I call my dad hasn't even been watching practice since we were in high school, right? But I call him, talk about practice, and like I said, he hasn't even seen me practice in such a long time. But for some reason, I feel like he's been there and he knows what happened. And it's such a cool dynamic to, like, you know what I mean? Because I know he's not going to be biased, right? He didn't see anything, and he just shoots questions like, so how were you moving your feet? Were you doing this? Were you doing that? You know, little things. He's pinpoint questions where I'm like, maybe I wasn't doing that, and he almost leads me to almost answer my own question, right?
Yeah, and I think too, like, when we're only human, and being human, we're very emotional, and it's hard to keep that proper perspective every single day. Like, you have a bad day, it's hard. Sure. You need those people around you, because you don't know, like, sometimes you're gonna take things out of proportion, or sometimes, like, you know, I know one of the biggest things that's translated over to the business world for me is, you know, even with anything in life, I've learned that sometimes when God doesn't allow something, or when God says no, there's something better, but you don't see that until you have it. Like, whatever girl I thought I wanted to be with 10 years ago doesn't hold a candlestick to my wife now. I didn't know that then. Same with, like, clients. Sure. Like, there's clients I think I want, and then I see them getting arrested for wire fraud and going bankrupt and stiffing all their clients. Like, you don't know what's going to... Right, and you don't know that until you go through it. And I think it's one of those things with wrestling, especially when you have, like, you almost... And this kind of leads into my next question. I feel like you might learn and take away more from the losses, especially when you win the NCAA's your junior year, correct?
Yes.
And then you took fifth your senior year. So like, what was that like? You're done collegiately after that, but you now take that with you as you're on your quest for the Olympics. What did those two, in contrast, what did you take from that?
I mean, it was a big, and it's something that we kind of talked. We sat down and talked, both with the coaching staff, with my family, and so this question was tossed around a lot. One of the biggest takeaways, I think, there's a bunch of differences from junior to senior year. But like I told you about my sophomore year, kind of when I took that dip. This one obviously wasn't as hard of a dip, but it's the same feeling. You know what I mean? And it's one of the lows that I hit.
Yep.
Where we know there's more. My coaches and my family said we know there's more. And if you don't learn from this, you know what I mean, then the loss was irrelevant. So one of the biggest takeaways for me was just the effort. You know what I mean? You have to be able to put it on the line. And this is something that I actually enjoy seeing. Jordan Burroughs. We at all the training camps, I love watching him train and wrestle.
Yep.
Live goes, because that's one guy who I look up to a lot, and that's one guy who, no matter what, day in, day out, every single go, he refuses to not lay it on the line, right? He's going to give it all every single time out, and I remember in practice watching, and even talking to Coach Snyder a little bit, Doc Snyder, and he was telling me that he does the same stuff kind of out in Nebraska.
Yeah,
that's one man that I've seen it put it on the line every single time. And if you watch me wrestle, and I can see I've compared both NCAAs my junior senior year. My junior year, I was ready to go get it. We saw the brackets come out. Even my coaches were like, Darren, I think you're gonna be the 4 seed, even though you beat the 2 seed last week. I think that might be how it falls, right? And I remember getting that information, and I said, Coach Pat, I'm gonna have to beat everybody to be an NCAA champ anyway. So he looked at me and said, all right, let's go do it. And we got on our horse, and the biggest difference was I went out to go get it. I laid it on the line every single time. My senior year, it was like I was protecting something, and all season I was kind of training for that. But when it hit, when the storm came, I was so unsteady, and coming from Lehigh isn't always like big school in the papers and the cameras and everything. I remember I got to the arena, and man, were they all over me and all the other 1 seed and stuff like that. And
yeah,
I got slightly rattled, and it's something that I wasn't really ready for. So when I watched those matches, I was like, man, I was wrestling like I was protecting something the entire time. I think I scored more takedowns in one match my junior year than I did the entire NCAA tournament, which is unheard of. You know what I mean? Shoot. And right. I did none of that, right? So, I mean, that's something that one of the biggest takeaways as well was just, be dangerous, man. Be dangerous.
And now, like, your junior year when you won, you beat Gilman in the semis, Lizak in the finals. You've beat some of the best guys in the world. And now you're gearing up here for the Olympic trials in April. And you have arguably, if not the toughest weight class. I mean, you have Fix, Gilman, Gross, Soriano, Garrett, you name it.
Yeah.
It's the gauntlet. And, I'm always interested when I see a lot of the top level guys, a lot of the best, when they wrestle the best, they wrestle better and they perform better. I'm curious at how you take away those junior and senior years specifically, along with now the last 2 years, and how that's kind of changed over to freestyle and your quest for the Olympic gold. I mean, you won the national championship, and that was like, defending it, like you said, would have been nice. That was a goal. But either way, you're an NCAA champion, and now your next goal is to be a world and Olympic champion. What have you taken from those successes and those losses when you are preparing now for the Olympic trials?
Yeah, I mean, in both aspects, when, successes, first off, I've beaten, like you said, some of the best guys in the world. That year I beat, after that year I lost to him in first round. I ended up beating Sean, in the wrestleback. So those top guys at my weight right now, I have beaten them, right? So it's a matter of, beating them again, so it's not like it's impossible, that's something that in this sport is so big, is the mental, right? The mental capability of being able to mentally see yourself going and doing it, right? So you said a lot of people kind of step up when they wrestle better guys. It's a matter of I've been there, done that type thing, success-wise, and then thinking about the loss aspect, I have taken these losses and I've learned, and freestyle wasn't really a big thing for me, so that's why this upcoming year is gonna be really big, because I've been training, freestyle with Coach Buxton and traveling out to the OTC and training for a lot of awesome partners. So I'm excited to really test my iron against some of these top-level guys. And one of the biggest takeaways is just freestyle is a game. You know what I mean? Wrestling is a game, and just got to get better with it every day.
And I'm curious, too, not a lot of guys talk about it, and I like to talk about it on this podcast because, like I said, I was never some incredible wrestler. I'm never going to be the guy to break down technique or I'm such a fan of this sport, the storylines. I love it. And I think there's so many interesting things that don't get talked about. And one of them is you have a guy like you who's an NCAA champion, and you have to fight and claw your way to make that Olympic spot. And if you don't, the amount of the depth of talent right now is stupid.
Oh, and every single way.
It's nuts. And this happens at the Olympic year. You go from 10 weights to 6 and everything. But, one of the other things you said in that letter to wrestling was success comes in all aspects, and it's not about wins and losses. And I believe that. But I'm curious on your perspective that I feel like the older you get, the more you can say that. But I feel like the older you get, the harder it becomes to avoid the wins and losses in the context of them. Meaning, I can
100% at this level.
I can be a terrible JV and varsity wrestler, but learn so much and take away from the sport. At this point, wrestling can still be teaching you so much in your 20s, but you now have to balance the fact that while your success doesn't necessarily come just from wins and losses, it's also your career.
Yes, exactly.
How do you balance that where it's I'm always fascinated by the business side of it. You're training full time for an Olympic and world medal and to make that team. And
absolutely,
how do you balance the constant planning from a career and professional side? What kind of thought goes into that side of it?
Well, I mean, and you said it perfectly. Just the whole idea, in college you're wrestling, and as you're growing up, you're wrestling it changes when you become an adult. Like you said, it's your career. So, but the idea of wrestling doesn't define you. I think I might have said that in one or two interviews.
Yep.
But that is something that I've been, really high on as well. As my wrestling will not define me. The things I've accomplished, absolutely, those are awesome accomplishments. But I don't want wrestling to define me. So that the wins and losses aspect, So, but like you said, the whole idea of it being my career does kind of weigh on that aspect of, it's my job, right? It's my job.
Right.
It's my job to compete. So, one way I've handled that is just kind of just dumbing it down, and the simpler, I make it, the easier, I can process it, and it's just, like I said, I have an awesome support system, so I know that it's not about wins and losses, and that no matter what, the sun's going to come up the next day, and I'm still going to have an awesome family. I'm still going to have, parents, girlfriend that loves me. You know what I mean? And
yep.
It's just like I said, making it as simple as I can. And I'm going to still have the opportunities I have off the mats, whether I win or lose, and the more I make it that, solidified in my head mentally, because it is mental warfare,
Without a doubt.
And the more I solidify that idea, the less pressure there is on me. You know what I mean? Just not letting it define me in that aspect, And like I said, so like the sun's still going to come up. Time is going to come and go, right? Like people get so nervous for what's ahead of them, right? Like people get so nervous like before they wrestle, before a big test.
Oh yeah.
But the time is going to come, right? No matter what, you cannot stop the time from coming and going, right? So the time from now until whenever you're going to compete, or from now whenever you're going to take a test, or from now whenever you're going to make a sale or make a phone call or have that meeting, the time is going to come and go, right? But there's nothing you do to stop it. So there's no point in being, overly worried about it the best thing to do is just to prepare for it, right? And one of the biggest ways to kind of shoot down nerves or anxiety is preparation, right? So if you're prepared for whatever is yet to come, and that's something that, I've kind of been thinking about as I'm taking my spiritual journey as well, and just pray for the wisdom and strength that, God can bestow on me, and just pray for, the knowledge just to be able to be ready for what's to come, just to be ready, and just to pray for the preparation. So, that's one of my biggest things is just, understanding that it's almost a waste of energy just to be so worked up about it, right? Be so nervous about what's to come when you know that whatever's going to come will come.
Right.
Right. Time is going to keep moving. So might as well just be prepared for whatever is to come, and you'll be ready to go. So that whole aspect of, like I said earlier, wrestling not defining me, is I know that there's going to be a time when I won't be able to wrestle. Yep. Right. I can't do this for forever. And I'm sure you've heard that plenty of times, because It's true, and so right now it's the balance of doing what I can, taking it one day at a time, but making sure that I'm constantly, building my support system and, and constantly connecting. And it's the whole social media aspect of this whole thing is pretty cool as well.
Yeah, totally. And it's, it's funny because I always bring that up too, from a social media standpoint. Like it's fascinating watching what's happened. It's fascinating watching what's happening from the youth standpoint right now, where you have guys like Yanni and Gable and these guys in college right now with such big audiences, and how much you focus on that. And even now, like, I talk to guys all the time. Like, listen, when Cal won the Olympics, he was on a Wheaties box. If that was today and he's on social, I don't know that he gets that deal, because we're so influence centric.
Oh yeah.
We're so and it's a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because there's more money to go around, because if you're relevant and you can help a brand and you can help a business, you can get a payday. Just winning 100%. A world championship doesn't get you the big prize anymore from a standpoint of longevity. You see guys that make a world team or win a world medal, an Olympic medal, and kind of disappear. And if that's what you want, that's fine. But watching social media now, and even, Derringer a few episodes ago was saying, he's like, I suck at it. I know I need to get better. I just haven't really focused on it,
Oh yeah.
Wrestling's such like a gritty sport that it's not 100%. The most tech savvy, and it's a lot of just guys that are the hardest workers on the planet. And
that's something that I envy Jordan, Jordan Burroughs, because I love just kind of picking his brain or just hearing him talk about, or just we're at the lunch table at the OTC, just hearing him talk about it. He's so good at balancing that, and obviously success, brings that and drives that. But what he does with that so whatever comes in, he does such a good way of outsourcing, right? So it's a constant circle that he's so good at, and it's awesome because there is so much, especially being slightly tech savvy. Like you said, some people just kind of fade away after they accomplish something, but to be able to do something, because everybody wants to hear or know or see something from success,
right?
And it's just being able to outsource it off on social media.
And how much are you focusing on that right now? Like you have, it's funny, one of the last quotes I had here that I wanted to bring up was, it's something your dad has always said, but Ric Flair has also always said it, to be the best, you got to beat the best. And that could not be truer for 2020.
Right?
I mean, the list of guys
100%.
that are going to be in that bracket that you have to beat, like how much are you focusing on building your brand right now, and how while trying to balance, like you're going to arguably have the toughest bracket of your life at those Olympic trials. What is that balance like to try to grow your brand and to make sure that you can run through that bracket?
Yeah, I mean, it's a slight juggle, but just knowing that building that brand is only going to make the win that much better, right? Yep. I think building that brand is only going to make the tournament that much better, the success that much better, just because it's something that everybody wants to see. Everybody wants to see the journey that everybody took to kind of where they got from, right? I mean, and I think that's something that's big with social media. Everybody wants to see from the beginning. It's like almost like you discover an artist, right? Discover an artist, and you're like, man, their music is good, but they're not that big, right?
Right.
Then you see him at a open up for somebody, and then you see him headline for a concert, and then you see him doing a world tour, and you're like, man, I used to listen to that guy's music when he made X, Y, and Z,
right?
And I loved him ever since. So I think it's kind of like that, and just being a slight inspiration, if at all, is something that's so awesome. And honestly, it's a driving factor. You know what I mean? Especially for Lehigh Valley, it's such a hotbed for wrestling. Being able to influence so many of these younger wrestlers, both in Lehigh Valley or across the country, is something that honestly for me is so driving that I think it helps out.
Yeah, and I forgot who just said that, but somebody was just telling me that a couple weeks ago of what a great tool it is for recruiting. Like you get to show off not just the lifestyle, but you get to kind of show behind the scenes. Like we do live in a world where content is so readily available.
Yeah, and everybody wants to see.
Right, and so because of that, we've created this culture of there's a desire to see behind the scenes, and knowing it's there, we crave it. We want to see what the best guys in the world are doing. We want to see what it's like to train at the best schools. We want to see what it's like to compete internationally. Like, we want to see that, both from my standpoint as a fan and somebody who's in the business of wrestling from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Even being an athlete, you're looking at what your buddies are, how your buddies are training, or how like I said, I'll see how Jordan is training, or I'm really good friends with Jo.
Yep.
Even social media, we'll go back and forth sometimes, posting video. You know what I mean? It's just it's just a way to kind of keep both content rolling, keep accountability going. You know what I mean? It's something that me and Jo kind of got into a little bit too. Just keep each other accountable. We'll shoot each other little texts or little techniques or even little clips of what we're grinding on, just to kind of keep each other accountable. Like, oh, he's doing that. Let's get back. You know what I mean? Let's get back to it today.
Do you find that?
So it's cool.
Yeah. Do you find that social distracts you at all, or are you able to balance it nicely? Like, I know some guys get caught up in reading what people say about them, or some guys struggle with. I think a lot of the top level guys who really understand social, the David Taylors, the Kyle Snyder, Jordan Burroughs.
Oh yeah.
Those guys. They're pretty good at kind of ignoring the critics, but it's now when you're at that level, there's a responsibility to come up with content and to share and not give away too much secrets. And every coach wants you to share something different. Some coaches are more, Tom Ryan is much more open with what Ohio State guys share than what Cale Sanderson allows. Cale Sanderson is more of a reserved guy, and I think once you hit that high level, there's that top level of being in that brand building process. You're now trying to think of not necessarily what the critics saying, how to focus on that, but you're trying to come up with content. What can I post today? I know I need to build my brand. Do you get distracted by either of those, or are you just kind of taking it with a grain of salt and saying, whatever happens today happens, I'm going to try my best?
I mean, it is slight grain of salt, and I like to fall on that end because exclusivity is something that I think is really good content too, right? So just it's almost like I like to think of it kind of as like certain branding of clothing, right? There's the normal brands obviously, but there's like some exclusive brands that only drop certain things once in a while, right?
Yep.
So I think I'm more of that of an act. I don't think I'm more of a I'm not more of a quantity.
Yep.
Content, put her out here. I'm more of like a quality.
Yep.
So it's not that hard to manage if that I do it like that, because like I said, it's something that when I think when I have an idea, of that I want to share, then I let it rip. But it's not something that's constantly brewing. I'm not constantly working on that idea of thinking about content. I'm doing my thing,
Yeah.
and then if I think it's quality enough to share, then I'll let it fly. But I think that's one way that I handle it that I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree, and I see all sides of it, because I think at its core, your concern should be doing whatever it takes to making sure you're prepping yourself to be an Olympic champion. At the same time, I'm in the side of marketing, and it's funny when guys ask me like, "What do you think I should do?" It's like, well, what do you want to do? Because if you ask me, I'm the kind of guy I was like, listen, we're inundated with so much content. You should be posting 8 times a day. That said, that's not feasible. That's just ideally what I would recommend. That doesn't mean when you go to apply it to yourself, and it's funny, there has been,
it's a workload you have to manage,
right? And everybody's different, and it's not like you shouldn't just look and say, okay, I'm going to mimic my social media like David Taylor or like Jordan Burroughs or like Kyle Snyder. Like, they all do what works best for them. David's very lifestyle driven. Kyle's very lifting driven. Jordan's very family driven. You got to take it and apply it to your life. But it's interesting to hear your perspective too, because I think that probably falls in line with the middle. I think that's what the norm is. Like, when I have something good, I'm going to post it. If not, I'm not going to strive to post it.
Yeah, and it's only because I am. With more success, obviously, comes more, ideas and more spotlights, obviously. But, you know what I mean? Like I said, just kind of staying focused on, what's at hand, and, what, and that's a good thing that you said, the what drives, what's your drive, and that's something honestly that I have to think about now. That was good. I picked that up as you said it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's. I try to do the same thing where I try to take what I see people are doing, and that's how I learn. There's no textbook for this. If there was, it'd already be outdated to be talking about MySpace. So it's like, for what I have to do, I have to watch what all you guys are doing and saying, okay, this is what Darian's doing, that's good. This is what he's doing, that could be better. This is what David's doing. This is, and I think the people that can analyze it the best are the people that are winning right now, which is what I'm trying to do. But so getting back to wrestling here before I let you go. I'm assuming you're competing at the Open in a few weeks here. What is your thought process going into this? Like, we've kind of touched on it individually, but you have the Open in just about 3.5-4 weeks to qualify for the Olympic trials in April. Like, you're right there. We're like 4.5-5 months out from you qualifying for the Olympic trials. Or for the actual Olympic trial, sorry. What is your thought process knowing, again, like, I feel like I'm not going to kind of regurgitate all those quotes, but you have to beat the best to be the best, and it's never been more true this year. What is your thought process to separate yourself, knowing you've beat guys like Garrett, you've beat guys like Gilman, and now you're going to have to do it when everybody's as hungry as you? Like, what's your thought process?
I mean, it's just one day at a time, but, 1% better, and it's the idea of building confidence, right? Because everybody at this point knows how to wrestle. Everyone's good at wrestling. So it's just, what mental edge can I grab every single day, right? What mental edge? So the Olympic trials and the Olympic Games are going to be played out in my head well before they actually happen. You know what I mean? So when I am, before I compete, like even bringing it back to the NCAA tournament, I've wrestled Thomas Gilman in my head at the NCAA tournament, for a whole season, right? Just because I knew who I needed to beat, to win an NCAA title, the best guys in the country. So that's kind of the mental edge that I'm getting after right now, is just knowing who I'm going to beat and playing that in my head, over and over and over again. And then same thing at the world level. who I'm going to need to beat, and playing it over and over and over again. So I know I'm going to have to beat the best to be the best, and it's just seeing it in your head first, right? Having that confidence, building that confidence. If I don't have it already, it's establishing it, building it, and then excelling at it. So, that's where I'm at right now, and I'm excited.
And I don't mean this from a standpoint of like cockiness. So feel free to respond however you would. But so in your mind, do you feel like you have the physical skill, you're the best, and it's just who can be the best mentally that day? Because it's kind of what it sounds like. Like, okay, we're all good at wrestling. We all can
absolutely
go out there, and if it's our day, we could probably score 10 points, and nobody would be surprised. But at this level, do you think it's more mental? Like, you can polish your skills, but you have the talent, you have the experience. You're an NCAA champion,
and that's what everyone's doing out here. Everyone is competing for the Olympic spot because everybody's so talented. And at this point in wrestling, with this pool of athletes, it's the best of the best. And like I said, everybody at this point is excellent at wrestling. They're the best at wrestling.
Yep.
For the United States, right? Or if that's the world. So at that point, it's a game of inches, right? It's a game. It's a game of weight management for the tournament. It's a gauge of physical with conditioning and technique and all that stuff, and then mental with where you are at. You know what I mean? And if you are able to wrestle 5 NCAA semi-year finals back to back on that day, you know what I mean? Because every match you're going to wrestle is going to be it's going to be a gauntlet. You said it endless times, and you have to be able to do that 3 or 4 times in one day, and then in the finals obviously the next day. So, and that is mentally taxing. I think your mind will shut down before your body, right? Because you put your body through crazy workouts. Because I think your body can handle crazy workouts. It's the mental part
100%.
Almost kind of cuts you down. You're like, mentally, you're like, I don't think I could do this. And then you kind of just, force yourself through the workout. And by the end of it, you're like, man, I can't believe I got through that. Right? So I think your mind will shut down before your body. So just being able to, and that goes back to everybody knows how to wrestle physically, right? And that goes back to just making sure your mind is as sharp as it can be. It's going to be a battle, both physically and mentally, every single match out there. So, that's I'm getting ready for now. So I'm excited.
I feel like it's easier to build your body up. It's easier to push yourself than it is. How do you make yourself more mental? How do you train your mind? Are there things that you do specifically to try to train your mind?
I specifically, I think, and I work on it, every single day, and it's just having all the little trigger points, and in workouts where it's going to get hard, and okay, so when I get into that moment at practice today, I'm going to force myself to go. And I had a conversation with George. I don't even know if you remember this, but we were on our way back from San Diego, or we were visiting. We were having a team dinner in San Diego when camp was out there the one summer, and I was in the car with Coach Buxton and Jordan, and he's like, I was just getting into freestyle, and he was telling me little tips here and there, and he's like, you have to be willing to put it on the line every single time. You have to be willing to force yourself to go, right? You have to force yourself to go even when you don't want to. So, I mean, that's something that I've been working on as well. So in situations where I know they're going to be tough, force yourself to go, right? And I said earlier that I'm going to wrestle the Olympic trials in my head well before, and that's what I'm talking about. I'm wrestling for those moments where I'm down and I need to get 2 takedowns for the win, right?
Yeah.
And those are the moments where you dig deep, and it's very hard to make that happen on the spot, right? It's very hard to make that happen on the spot because mentally it almost might be too much for you to handle.
Yeah.
But if you fought that monster plenty of times, so then that when it comes up, you're like, I already know what to do. And because wrestling is so high paced and fast paced, you don't have time to think. It's just all reaction.
And
reaction.
Are you learning these from talking to other wrestlers, or are you like watching podcasts? Or like, what's that like? Like if somebody's if there's a younger wrestler right now listening who's like, okay, I want to train my mind to get better. Should they go read books, listen to podcasts, talk to the wrestlers? Like, what should they do?
I think a little bit of both. with talking to the people that have been there, done that, right? So I love picking minds of coaches, athletes, all the time. And honestly, I've listened to a couple of the podcasts that you've thrown up here, which are awesome.
Thank you.
Speaking with a bunch of the athletes on here, and just being able to understand and recognize where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are in the room, right? So asking a lot of questions, asking coach after every live go almost, hey, I felt this, what do you see, blah, blah, blah. But being able to analyze where you're struggling or even areas that are tough. I'm talking mentally, areas that are tough. And when you get in that situation, always like the more you work on it in the room, the more you like kind of sit and think about triggering yourself to go in a hard situation. You know what I mean? Like you're in a live go, you're dog tired because you're maybe doing 10-minute go, 15-minute go. You're dog tired, forcing yourself to go, understanding that, man, I am so tired. But as soon as you think about that, your mind automatically flips to, but I got to go get more. I got to go get another one. So just doing that, being able to recognize that moment is so big. And I've done that just talking to, wrestlers, listening to podcasts and, just listening, just asking coaches just in the moment, in practice. I've asked coaches to remind me, you know what I mean? Before practice, I would ask coaches, hey, can you make sure, if you see me like kind of slacking, to move my feet or to get going, you know what I mean? So little cues like that. That's something that I picked up too, even in college.
And I think
I would physically just say, hey, coach, like, just remind me that if you see me like kind of maybe like getting tired or maybe like kind of pulling off the gas pedal, to trigger myself to keep going. Because that's tough.
It is, and I think like so many people, if you sat there and said to somebody like, listen, doing the right thing is always the right thing. Doing what needs to be done is always what should be done. It's easy to say that. We know 100%. These things, but it's kind of keeping that proper perspective that applies to what you're doing. Right. It's so easy to lose sight of that, or it's so easy to say, it doesn't matter if I do this today. Tomorrow I'm going to give 100%. Or tomorrow I'm going to do that. But with something like this, going back to what you said earlier of the big picture and kind of getting lost in the process, you can't afford to not give your effort every single day.
And especially like we were talking about earlier as well, is like at this point now, like it being my job, you know what I mean? It's something that you almost take into, you're more accountable. You know what I mean? Because you're like, damn it, if I'm going to do this, then let's do it. Like, you know what I mean? If this is going to be my job, then I'm going to do it.
Right.
To my fullest.
For sure, man. Wow. A lot of good stuff in there. Well, listen, man, I'm going to let you go have your second Thanksgiving. I hope it's a fun one. Keep me posted on what traditions you learn about, and I'm pumped for the Open in a few weeks.
Yes, sir. Justin, you're the man. Thanks for reaching out to me.
Of course, man. Thanks so much for coming on. And just like that, that's today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in, for listening. I hope you got some value out of this. I hope you got some entertainment. Be sure to subscribe. You guys keep listening. I'll keep putting out more episodes.
And the beat goes on.